Okay, so this is a video response to Time Lord's 5 questions for Kamen Rider fans, and kind of an impromptu thing, but it's just very rarely you see a Kamen Rider prompt that I want to respond to, so I'll respond to this one. And I'll test out this new camera in the process. So I have 5 questions here, and we'll start with the first one. See, I have really bad handwriting. Okay. Number 1, how did you discover Kamen Rider? Well, I'm going to take probably a different approach than most of the responses that'll be posted by now, and say that my first exposure to Kamen Rider came in the form of Swan's Masked Rider, which was that really horrible, forgettable adaptation version of Kamen Rider Black and Kamen Rider Black RX. One of the two, I think it's Black RX. And it wasn't a good show. I mean, there's just a lot of stuff that was really wrong with it, but it was your first real exposure, I think, for me, to Kamen Rider proper. The first Kamen Rider series I sat and watched all the way through was Kamen Rider Kabuto. And that proved to be a mistake because I was watching it in the late afternoons, evenings, and Kabuto has a lot of scenes that are set in a dining area. So there's a lot of food involved. I'm going to let you figure out how that means it's a bad thing. Number 2. What is your favorite character and why? That's an interesting way of phrasing this question, Matt, since by character you don't necessarily mean writer. You can mean a supporting character. Or just, a standard villain or whatever. My favorite character actually was a writer, but he's a supporting character, and that would be Kagami Arata, Kamen Rider Gadak from Kabuto. And the reason I like him the best is because Kabuto has a lot of problems, and Kagami fills in some of those issues by being like the counterpoint. If you notice that a lot of the more recent riders we've gotten since Kabuto have been kind of more closer to Kagami than we have Tendo, with the exception of, well, that guy right there. So yeah, I would say Kagami is because he tries his best, even if his best is never good enough to be the main hero. He still tries, and he has kind of a very adversarial relationship with his father, and a confrontational one. And he also probably has one of the biggest dangling plot lines I think was badly botched by the Kabuto team with regards to him beating Tendo cleanly, but that's for another time. Question number 3 is, what is your favorite series and why? Well, I'm going to have to go with my favorite series being Kuga, the first one of the Heisei era. And the reason why is because, and this will be tied into the next question, there's not a lot of thrills and frills attached to it. It's a very basic, down and dirty, gritty Kamen Rider series. They're not really marketing a lot of toys in this show. They're just, saying, here's the story, we're going to tell it to you. And they do a very good job of pulling it off. Godai is, he's kind of the forerunner for this other type of rider that's the sensitive, not less certain of himself rider that we get in the Heisei era often. And the other characters in the show don't have to necessarily have, rider powers or something else that makes them unique or interesting. They just, have their motivations. The police detective whose name escapes me. He doesn't need the special ability to transform into another rider to kill the Grongi. Humans eventually learn how to do it on their own through research and hard work. So yeah, that's why I kind of like Kuga the best. Question number 4 asks, what defines a good series to you? This one's kind of hard because a lot of the later series haven't been good series, in my opinion. Yeah, I get it. It's hard to Kamen Rider and its other shows are toy commercials. But the last, I guess, 2 or 3 series we've gotten for both Kamen Rider and its sibling Super Sentai have been really, really over the top toy gimmicks. Right now it's like collect the medals 1, 2, 3 for Kamen Rider O's. I'm not really interested in that. Namely because it's virtually impossible to collect the medals without, spending several $100s that I do not have. And the medals themselves don't really do a whole lot. I mean, at least you could say with the Gaia memories, and they're kind of over on my desk right now, you could push a button, hear a sound effect. Okay, I can sort of justify spending $20 for that. The medals, not so much. They kind of remind me of the phenomenon popularized in Penny Arcade with the merch. Their take on these Japanese shows that have cards and toys and all sorts of tie-ins. Google merch, Penny Arcade, and I think Flesh Reaper. I think that'll explain everything. But it's just like these later shows have been far too much toy intensive. Even Gokaiger now is too toy intensive, and that's something it kind of bothers me. The other thing that bothers me is the fact that the quality of the shows has gotten very, very bad. Kiva has an example of this with Taiga living at the end, and there's this happy horse shit ending where everybody let's live, let's learn to live with humans, not eat them. What happens if building Taiga up as a badass villain to be killed? They just wimped out at the end. That irritates me. That's something else I don't like. Doesn't stop me from buying some of the stuff associated with the series. It just annoys me. And number 5 is ask, besides Kamen Rider, do you watch any other Tokatsu shows, and tell us what you watch? Well, how does one define Tokatsu nowadays? I've seen pretty much every Power Ranger series there is. I don't remember every exact episode. Sorry. So I remember that. I've seen Mystic Knights of Tir-Na-Nog. I remember watching that when it was still on the air. That was an underrated show, I think. I believe you could classify that as Tokatsu. I'm not sure you would. I'm watching Power Rangers Samurai right now, and actually liking it a lot more than I'm watching. I'm watching Kaisuku Sentai Gokaiger now, and I'm not liking it at all for many, many reasons, the least of which is that it feels poorly plotted. And does it bother anyone else that, something associated with, a rider, like a key, I mean, after all, they ride motorcycles, it's part of their name, is part of the Sentai series, but the little coins that you would normally associate with pirates are part of the Kamen Rider series. Did anybody else catch that? So, I did watch a few of the old Ultraman movies. Haven't watched the new Ultraman in years. Not really a big desire to, because I'm not really sure what the thrill is, or I guess you'd say the tension is in watching a guy turn into a 500-foot version of himself. Or, I forgot how tall the Ultramen are. Now I'm saying it's a bad thing. I know it has its supporters and people who love it. More power to you. Just not for me. Other Tokatsu? At some point I would like to track down the toys for Gridman or Superhuman Samurai Cyber Squad just own them and say, ha, I have them. But I'm not sure I ever will. And really, that's about it. So I hope this answers some of your questions, Matt. And I hope nobody else gets really, really pissed off about this. And yeah, my room's a shambles. There's a lot of stuff in different places. I went through a lot of stuff and found out I had things I had forgotten I had even bought. So I'll show it off at some point. And I'll do more reviews. But until then, talk to you later. Bye.